All right, guys,
We're
looks like we
live.
are live now here. Welcome to the July Hangout with special guest Stephen Kick, the CEO of Nightdive Studios. That's all I got.
Boy, that was an intro right there. You need an Ed
Thank
McMahon.
you. Good night.
Yeah, you need an Ed McMahon or a Paul Schaefer. Oh man. Um,
Or a Gary Owens.
Are you auditioning for the role, Shane? I bet you could do that pretty good.
there's one thing I could do. It's flap my lips. So, but no, I'm not auditioning for the.
Here's
Yeah,
Stephen.
here's Steven. Okay, Steven. So right before we started recording, what ridiculous number is the System Shock Kickstarter at?
1,137,000.
What was that? 1,000,000 what?
137,000.
So can you do me a favor? Can you lean back and kind of steeple your fingers as you say that?
About 5 million short of what it truly deserves, though.
Yeah.
Probably
I
one of
don't
the
know.
best games I played in the 90s.
The
I'm gonna
remix
pull-
album just came out yesterday, right? Or what is this?
Um,
Zardonic.
yeah, we announced some collaborators for a remix album.
How far do your current stretch goals go? I'm going to the Kickstarter right now.
We've got quite a few stretch goals. I mean, I don't think, based off of what I'm seeing, I'm not sure. I don't think we're going to reach them all.
Yeah.
But we've got, I mean, you can kind of see there's like some blurred out near the bottom, and I think we go all the way to about 4 million.
Wow. But still,
Sometimes you get that big surge right at the end. I mean, that seems to be a thing with Kickstarters, right?
yeah. Let's see where. And I know that Kick Track is not always accurate, but let's see where Kick Track has you trending at.
Yikes.
Well, it's good anyway because your initial ask was 900K, right? So you've exceeded that, which is
You got
good.
the kick track up, Shane?
I'm pulling it up right now. System Shock.
Yeah. Also worth noting, PlayStation 4 version was announced.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, good for you.
Yeah, we got kind of bombarded from day one from the Sony side, and it was just one of those things where we were like, well, I guess we better start working on that right away.
Here, I'm going to share my screen here. And again, it's not, every now and then Google Hangouts won't let me share my screen. But again, Kick Track is not the be-all and end-all, but they're pretty good at projecting. And they're showing that you're trending towards about 1.357 is what they're showing you trending at.
That's getting really close to the RPG level.
Yeah. Oh, what? Yeah? Okay. Well,
What
cool.
was that, 1.4, right, for that?
Yeah, I mean, at the very least, I would really like to see us get the stretch goal where we can add, proper localization. Even if we don't make it, I think that, I'll probably make a concerted effort to do that anyways because, I mean, there's so many fans of the game from around the world that it would be a shame not to at least have some of the, primary languages supported. So.
Cool.
Mhm.
So
You've already got, what, French and German and what's the other one?
Yeah, it's the eFigs languages, so English, French, Italian, German, and Spanish.
nice.
And then we've gotten a lot of requests for Polish and Russian as well. And I guess it'll kind of depend on how much that will end up costing us to do extra languages past those 4. But if it's not much more, we'll probably end up doing it.
Nice. So this, a couple of quick things. One, I kind of feel like just sitting back and watching the coverage of all this. I feel like that you even doing this Kickstarter with System Shock has elevated Nightdive a couple of steps up in the public eye. Like many more people are aware of Nightdive now. Do you feel that from where you're sitting?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that with the advent of our first game, which was System Shock 2, and then the 100 or so that followed after that. There's been a very steady climb in awareness, but it hasn't been anything to this extent. When we first started the Kickstarter, I think we had like 2,000 likes on Facebook, and now we've got close to 11,000. And over the course of just 30 days, so there's definitely a lot more recognition, which is great. I mean, I think that we're this was our next evolutionary step forward as a publisher and as a developer, and yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely going to put our name on the proverbial map.
Yeah, I feel
about
that
the whole
Go ahead.
problem behind trying to get like the No One Lives Forever license. The fact that it just seems like people don't care.
I wouldn't say that they don't care. I would think that you mean from a community standpoint or from like
no. The companies just didn't care. It was like we don't know where the who actually owns the rights. We don't really care.
What was that?
No, because the people cared a lot.
Mm-hmm.
That's a cult classic.
Seems like the companies are just like, we don't really want to put the effort into it.
Well, yeah, and it all comes down to the financial side of it. I mean, basically, there was going to have to be a lot of work done on the end of these studios to exactly figure out what the hell was going on, and they didn't want to. I mean, they don't care. It's not going to do Call of Duty numbers. It's not going to do Battlefield numbers. So they're not going to spend their lawyers' time trying to figure something out just for the sake of, a passionate fan base.
Which sucks because I mean, when they sorry, I know my thumb's in the way of the camera. I can't get it converted back over to the computer for whatever reason. It just sucks because when they re-released like the Quest for Glory series, when Activision finally did that after them saying that there was no interest in it, it was rapidly accelerated to the #1 position on GOG and stayed there for quite some time. So it's obvious that there is an interest in these products, and they could make a decent amount of money for a small amount of work. But
it's like Adam wants to get a word in there.
Well, if it doesn't make all of the money, then they don't want any of the money.
And not only that,
stupid mentality for a company to take.
Well, not only that, but because the rights are kind of spread amongst, from what we understand anyways, they're spread amongst a couple of different of the big AAAs. They will do everything in their power to prevent their competitor from making money, even if they're going to make money as well. It's a pretty short-sighted mentality.
Dog world, I guess.
But I think, going back to Shane, what you were saying about us getting more recognized and having more notoriety, I think that ultimately something like that is going to help us make a bigger impact if we choose to go and start the discussion again, which is always a possibility. I mean, I'm pretty much set on never giving up. So it'll happen one of these days.
Well, you know what you should do. Oh, go ahead.
What should I do?
Well, you know what you should do. I should call and say, I'll pretend to be like Edward Norton's agent, and I'm going to say Edward Norton's going to come in, and he's going to negotiate on behalf of these games. So, because you totally look like they posted. I posted a thing on Twitter, and you said, "Yeah, you're not the first person who said I look like Edward Norton." And then they posted your interview with on Matt Chat on RPG Codex, and somebody's like, "How did Matt land Edward Norton?" So we totally need to parlay that, and we will boondoggle these corporate executives.
You know what? I'll put it in the maybe category.
Okay, I'm just going to stick a pin in that.
Everything's worth a shot at this point.
Now, in all seriousness, though, there was an interview you did with Adam on Fragments of Silicon, and there was some property that you went to some big executive meeting and almost crashed the party and pitched them, you were so passionate about wanting to do the license right, and I can't remember what license it was. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
Yeah, that might have been E3.
That was Yeah,
Yeah,
that was
with
LucasArts.
Yeah, we got into like we found out where Disney was having their corporate after party,
That's what it was. Yeah.
and I pretty much just like slipped in between the velvet rope, and I just straight up walked right up to Bill Roper and was like, pulled him away from from this conversation he was having, and I was like, I need to talk to you right now. And that kind of set that whole thing in motion. But unfortunately, nothing really came of it.
Yeah.
Disney was very difficult to work with,
They have that reputation.
but now that they're pretty much they're exiting the publishing side of things, it could open up some more opportunities. I'm not sure, with the advent of Disney Infinity ceasing development.
Well, that is what they're shifting to, licensing as opposed to publishing. So.
Yeah, one of the licenses that I found out that they had just recently was Stubbs the Zombie.
Yeah, they got that when they bought Wide Load way back when.
That's one that I would eventually like to do, and could provide a good segue for us to at least get some paper signed with Disney and open up further opportunities. So
That would be
never
a
know.
good game to bring back. There's a decent number of fans of that game.
Yeah,
So much so that they created a trailer for a second game that didn't exist.
Stubbs the Zombie, huh?
Oh yes.
Rebel Without a Pulse.
Yeah.
My most tragic trailer for a game that never existed was Interplay. What was it? Secret of Vulcan's Fury?
The Secret of the Vulcan Fury.
That was such that good. I was like, how do I? That was the first shut up and take my moment money, probably, or take my money moment ever. And I'm like, come to find out, the game never even existed, like at all.
Yeah, it was just they were just showing off pre-rendered stuff. They didn't have anything finished.
Well,
we got a question coming in text format here.
One thing first before we go to that. I found out, you guys probably know this, but Looking Glass had apparently started work on a Star Trek licensed game while they were doing System Shock 2.
Yeah.
Whatever happened to that? Did it just...
Rob Waters talked about that on my show just last week. And apparently
What format was the game? What kind of game was it?
It's first person.
Huh.
Yeah, and
based off the same vein as the System Shock games.
I want to say
TNG or what?
No, it was Voyager, and Ken Levine worked on it. Apparently, like it was apparently in production for like a year, but I think it was canceled because of Looking Glass's financial difficulties.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Was it part of because the Voyager had the Elite Force couple of games? Was it part of that or something completely different?
Yeah.
Any idea?
No, it wasn't Elite Force. Elite Force came much later. Elite Force was like 2001, 2002.
Okay.
This is
all right. Yeah, you're right.
97, 98.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right. All right.
That probably would have been amazing. Probably would have been a game changer.
Yeah, this is like 1996. I think this around the time of Thief.
All right. So we've got.
Alan wants to ask a question.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah, it's a great discussion. Kind of steering it back to this new Kickstarter for System Shock. They're discussing your appearance looking similar to Edward Norton, which got me thinking maybe you might want to include an iconic soap somewhere in the new game, which then brings up the larger question of how do you feel about Easter eggs and or memes included in the games. And the larger question related to that is, you're taking maybe some artistic liberty with this new System Shock remake. How faithful do you plan to be? And in what instance do you want to add more depth and breadth and detail to the world in terms of like maybe soda cans or like a garbage can filled with trash and other sort of clues to really expand the world and make it a little deeper pool to swim in?
Wow, that's like 50 questions, man. That's awesome.
Well, I did hear that Tyler
What is your
Durden was the
philosophy
final
of
boss.
life? How should we live our lives?
So to answer the first part of that, Easter eggs, definitely one of my favorite things about video games. If done well, they're just nice little nods that don't take a lot of development time and they're tastefully done. Just one personal one that I would like to add is probably like either a Crow-T robot or a Tom Servo bot hidden somewhere on board Citadel, like maybe in a movie theater that
What
they would
about
have
those
on board.
little hand robots from Red Dwarf? You know, when you take them off, they do like that. You know what I'm talking about from Red Dwarf? Those would be great.
Oh, those cleaning robots?
Yeah, the little hand
The little
robots.
fix it guys? Yeah, I remember those.
Yeah.
I was actually during that time I watched a lot of Babylon 5. I didn't see Red Dwarf.
Okay, it's okay. We still like you. It's all right.
Breathe, Shane, breathe.
Okay, so to answer your next question in terms of like keeping it more or less faithful to the source material, it's been our number one goal this whole time. But I do see there's a lot of potential to add a lot more detail in the way of like nonverbal storytelling. So like when you're talking about adding in, like soda cans or garbage or trash or just like various detritus that is designed in such a way that it adds depth to the world and makes it more of a believable place. That's definitely going to be one of our priorities. I think set dressing is really important in video games, and like if you can go to an area where you can tell something happened without it being explicitly told to you, your mind will kind of fill in the blanks, and the story becomes more personal on a deeper level than can be told through direct narrative. And that's going to be like one of our strengths, and one of the things that we're going to have to do in order to make Citadel Station feel like a place where people actually lived, they worked, and eventually died or became converted into cyborgs. So, yeah, more stuff, more detail.
I love those sorts of games, and I think System Shock was kind of a pioneer in that regard, right? So instead of having these take you out of the moment cutscenes all the time, it was more the story's more embedded into the actual gameplay.
Yeah.
Those diaries and email and so on and so forth.
Yeah, and even like I think when you find the area with, God, I'm not sure if this is what it was, but it was like a whorehouse in System Shock 2 on the Von Braun. It was like there was those like the love rooms. You guys know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, one guy is dead in there.
Yeah.
Once I got to that area, I never left.
What did he die from?
Exhaustion.
But like just little, like there was an area like that, and like, science fiction wise, you're on such a board, like a clean, state of the art, FTL drive spaceship, and then on one of the decks they've got this place for the crew members to unwind, and that's like one of those things that you just don't, you wouldn't think of. Like, I always imagine that on Star Trek: The Next Generation, Riker.
Take me to the whorehouse deck. Yeah,
Some of the
I
other
don't even want to know how they use the holodeck. I was just thinking about that the other day.
like who has to clean up after.
You went there.
But it's like those little things. It's like it adds humanity to an otherwise unbelievable kind of situation,
Are there? I can't remember. Are there bathrooms on Citadel Station? Are there toilets?
Yeah.
Are you guys adding them?
That's a good question. I'm totally drawing a blank. I believe there's
I'm pretty sure there are.
That's the first thing Shane looks for in a game like this.
Well,
Where is the bathroom?
No, it
That's
just made
Richard
me
Gary
think.
about that.
It just made me think because we were talking about the holodeck and Riker and Star Trek and the real use. I was just looking at an article the other day where, like, if you look closely, there's a head on the bridge of the Star Trek Enterprise. You have to look close, but the bathroom's right there. And every now and then you can see crew members going that way on the bridge. So you have to look for it. But
You can consult Richard Garriott about bathroom usage in space. He'll go into detail about it. So contact him on Twitter and ask him about using bathrooms in space.
I'm going to do so right now.
Bathrooms in video games is actually pretty interesting too because I don't know about you guys, but like I feel like we could almost trace like the evolution of video game graphics technology through how bathrooms are presented in these games. Like at
I've
first,
heard about crappy graphics, but this is an all new.
like you'd go into a bathroom, right? And I don't know about you guys, but like the first thing that I try to do, I'm like, well, can I flush the toilets? Can I turn on the sink? And then this is when I knew video games were getting really good, is when I could see my reflection in the mirror.
Oh yeah.
It was just one of those things. It's like there's a bathroom in this game. Let's see how far the developers were willing to push the technology to make it believable.
Well,
okay. I hope it doesn't get so believable to the point where the VR might lead to actual messes.
All right. So can you see this? Like, yeah, where you have a little
scratch and sniff add-on in the package for Kickstarters.
Hey, the new smell card out from Sound Blaster is amazing. It's a 16-bit smell card, but
I would buy that.
Can you see this?
Larry 7 had a scratch and sniff thing with the toilet.
There was also a product that a company was trying to make where it would actually, with programming from certain games, it would release scents when you got to certain areas. And apparently they had a prototype on the table, but everybody claimed that there was no way they could do it. And so the company kind of went under because no one believed in it. And the president of the company was mad. He's like, I had the damn thing sitting on my desk and it worked, but no one believed us.
Yeah. Well, so let's think about this. Let's just imagine this. A new, because you have the heads-up display on all the first-person shooters. So you get a new graphic that shows how full your intestines are before you have to, right? And so that's another percentage thing you've got to keep up with, right?
What's that? Hey, Nathan, that game we were playing had remember that the pooping character's always pooping everywhere. What was it?
Ark.
Ark.
Yeah, Ark.
Yeah.
I knew exactly.
Every time you turn around, you gotta go.
That's the only thing I remember about that game.
So, can anyone?
The dinosaurs would be the most memorable part of that game for you.
And this
I was totally like, what just happened? What is that? Whoa.
So this is a semi-serious question. Has anyone ever seen a video game that took the physics to the point where you could flush stuff down the toilet and some stuff would clog it up and some wouldn't? Has anyone seen
Deja Vu, the old Mac Venture game had it. That was
Did that puzzles. Do that? But that wasn't.
Paraceratheriums, specific
puzzle.
species of.
I wonder if anyone.
Ethereum is the actual family name. Paraceratherium is the.
I wonder if anyone's ever actually designed like the physics of the pipes, right? Like, oh, this will flush and this won't. I mean, I'm sure somebody has, like in college, but I wonder if any actual games have come out like that.
There was that game. I don't know if they did this, but it would seem like an appropriate fit. Viscera Cleanup Detail.
That sounds Japanese. That sounds Japanese.
It's not. It's
Viscera?
I think that's what it was called. It was a game where basically you're like a cleanup crew that comes in after the events of like an action adventure first-person shooter, and you have to clean up. You have to clean up all the blood and the guts left over by the hero.
Oh.
Yeah, they made a couple of those. Like I have the Shadow Warrior version.
Shadow Warrior version.
Yeah. So it's like the. Go ahead.
Yeah, Shadow Warrior, the reboot of the old FPS that was released a couple of years ago.
Guys, here we go, man. This is a gold mine. We're gonna come up with a game that you have to clean up after the hero. So like the hero knocked the mandible off the alien, right? So the mandible.
Digestive system shot.
Yeah. Will this mandible flush down the toilet, and you have to keep investing in and upgrading the toilet to flush away the detritus of the battles. Guys, this is a gold mine. Let's form a company right now and make this game. We can call it Flush Adventure. Something of what? Yeah.
We just add it on as a multiplayer feature.
Oh yeah.
DLC. So then person gets to be the hero, and then everybody else gets to clean a bathroom.
What's that infamous video? It's like so many girls in a bowl or something.
Oh, 2 girls, 1 cup. Why are we bringing this up?
I don't know. You knew what I was talking about.
I'm like, video game, no idea.
All right. So before we got on that topic, what were we?
How
I don't know if you can recover from that.
Yeah. Maybe we should just move on.
I went to go check
That
out
was
that
a-
RPG Codex thing you were telling me about, and they're calling me a frat boy.
Oh my
I didn't
God.
see that. I didn't see that. They just said
That's
That's
something
one of
about
the
worse than
that's
that.
one of the kinder compliments they would offer you.
Yeah, RPG
Yeah,
Codex. You got to have your flame-proof underwear to go there.
That's quite the compliment they've given you.
Yeah, actually, the RPG Codex is kind of like a bunch of Bluto Batarskis, and like they're really rough, but it's actually a good group, and they're very passionate about games. So they're actually quite keen on your System Shock thing.
What's
So.
up, bro?
That's good. I mean, I'm seeing a lot of hate for just the fact that we're supporting consoles, but so that's another thing too. It's like I'm very much aware of like consolitis.
Consolitis.
Yeah, like basically building for consoles first and then porting the console version back to PC. That is definitely not something that we're gonna do. The control scheme and all the graphical options that are standard on a PC release are going to be present in our game. So we're not going to lock you out of any of that stuff. If you want to mess with it, all the more
That
power
raises
to
another
you.
question. With the PS4 release, are you going to support keyboard and mouse on the PS4? And the PlayStation 2 Deus Ex version allowed you to plug in a mouse and keyboard and play, and there's some other first-person games on PlayStation 2 that allow that feature?
We haven't really gotten that far into it yet. We don't have our SDKs yet. We're getting those pretty soon, only because we've only just recently announced the partnership. But I did see that as an option, so I can't answer that right now. I'm not sure.
You took a lot of flack about the music. I know. I'm still seeing some of that. They don't. I guess people are offended by the dubstep or something like that.
I think
More so the
think
the orchestrated score, I think.
I
Is that
just
what
had
you're
some
gonna say,
comments on
Adam?
my video, then they're saying, "Oh, don't make a dubstep version," something like
they
that.
shouldn't have a problem with dubstep since the original games had techno in it. That's basically the ancestor to EDM and dubstep these days.
Yeah, I would hesitate to call it dubstep anyways. It's definitely more like drum and bass. It's darker and it's heavier, and it kind of fits more with the cyberpunk kind of tone and theme of the game. And the artists that we have on board for that that's their specialty. So I'd be hard pressed to see somebody complain about it, but then again, everybody
gonna
complains
complain.
about everything, so
We can
Haters
always
gonna
have the
hate.
option.
Haters gonna hate, right?
You can
yeah.
always have the option to disable the music and then just have the atmospheric sounds if people don't want to hear that.
Well, that's the thing, I think, with System Shock in general, right? Music in the first game was really overbearing, and the second one had that sort of techno thing, like every 3 levels or so. How many people who have played it disable it? I only, on my recent run, left it on, because usually I disable it to keep the horror aspect more pure, but there is no middle ground. You can't have... you can't have sort of overbearing techno music and horror at the same time. Like, that doesn't quite work. At least I think so.
It's going to be one of those things where we're going to have to find like an even balance. I thought that what they did in System Shock 2 was pretty noble. Like, it definitely has the creaking hulls and the moaning mutants and all those great sound effects. But then it's a very diegetic soundtrack, so that when things of importance are happening, or it's like a tense situation, the beats per minute will start and kind of fade in gradually to like a crescendo, and then it's like if you die or if you live and you kind of defeat those enemies, it will gradually go back to that that atmospheric kind of music.
It's it's location based, but it's really, really weird, because I personally do think it's a bit intrusive. Even though I love System Shock 2, and my last play I'm just used to it now, but like I think the quieter thing it's scarier to turn the corner and there's a hybrid in your face when there is no beats,
Warning.
to play. Yeah, that's right. When you my friend was watching me play, and I was going through the corridors on deck 4 or whatever, deck 3, and there's music playing no matter what. There's action music playing no matter what, and you just it makes it less. It's cooler. It's more actiony, but definitely less horror.
Is the music pumped through the system intercoms, so then maybe the AI is controlling the soundtrack for you? Getting back to the diegetic, non-diegetic argument.
Yeah, we thought about that actually.
Yeah.
We were like, well, it would be really cool as if, on one of our early first-person hand models, there's like a wrist computer, and we're like, why not have that double as like an MP3 player and have the player be able to like pick a track or something from the Hacker Zone library that mimics, some of the harmonies and stuff from the System Shock 1 music. And I mean, it just didn't seem like a very good fit. It didn't seem natural.
Yeah, that would be the player choice, but if the atmosphere, the environment has the intercom system, then the music is forced through it, and you can't find a way to shut it off unless you shoot out the speakers and the music stops.
Right, yeah. We're still playing around with like the idea and how we're gonna, really finally approach the overall sound direction of the game, but I think what we're aiming for is definitely more in line with what Shock 2 did, where it's mostly atmospheric, punctuated by moments of, cyberpunk music, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah, it's just like we talked about before. It's that fine line between nostalgia and it's a remake, right? So it can't be the same, or it wouldn't be a remake. So if people want to play the original, it's still out there, right?
Yeah, and one of the great things about working directly with other side, like Paul Neurath and Warren Spector and stuff, is like we've had conversations with them, and we're like, so what would you guys have done had you had the resources and the technology today back then? Like, what things would you have pushed in this direction or that direction, or what would you have dialed back on, that kind of thing. And we're still kind of like working on going through their feedback and figuring out, how we can make this game feel like a Looking Glass game. And we realize that in order to do that, we're gonna have to kind of put our own spin on it. We're gonna have to introduce some new elements. We're gonna have to innovate to some degree. How far we're like gonna push it in any of these directions or mechanics or systems is yet to be seen. But that is kind of one of our philosophies behind this is, if we're going to remake it and we're going to do it our way, it has to be unique. It can't be the exact same experience. That would kind of, violate the philosophy of Looking Glass as a studio. So, yeah, it's going to be hard, but I feel confident knowing that we've got, they're on our side.
I was kind of wondering, Steven, if you have some favorite remakes or some previous remakes that you're kind of looking up to.
I really enjoyed the new Wolfenstein game, and I really love Doom. I love the new Doom. I think they did a great job of capturing the essence of what those games were, which is, I think it's probably even more challenging because they have, I would say, almost less to work with than we do, where Doom is just, pretty much straightforward. There's not really a narrative. You're a Marine on Mars. You're killing these demons that have come through a portal from hell. Of course, it gets a little more complex when you get up to Doom 3, but Doom 4 or Doom, they interjected a narrative in it that's more or less kind of throwaway, but they've captured, I feel like, the essence of the level design and the action of the first game, which is arguably, the most important thing about it. I just have so much fun when I'm playing it. My brain shuts off, and I go like full lizard mode, where my tongue's hanging out as like a demon's head, explodes like a watermelon, And I remember feeling the exact same way in 1993 or whenever Doom 1 came out. And then it's kind of the same with Wolfenstein. I mean, you're killing Nazis, and they added their own little thing on it where it's now 1960. The Nazis have won the war. You're not just in a castle anymore in this confined space. I think that they captured what was great about that particular game and that franchise, and they brought it up to a new modern standard. I don't know. Are there any other remakes that you guys have played that you found particularly enjoyable, or ones that you would recommend?
Resident Evil. Resident Evil for the GameCube is probably the best remake I've ever played. If you're looking for a blueprint to how to do a remake, that's a good one.
That's not the same version that they recently released on Steam, right?
It is. It actually is the same version that they just released.
Okay. Yeah, I did install it.
I'm trying to think of the worst ones. There's so many to choose from.
Well, I got a question real quick that, Steven kind of touched on something that I think about a lot. Okay, so Wolfenstein and the original Doom and a lot of the old games, like the old shooter games and stuff, the narrative was like one sentence. And then they just threw you into the game and everybody had a blast and they were massively successful. Right? Like Doom was like, I vaguely think I'm on Mars and there's demons. Right? It didn't really matter. It's like, I need to work my way through the level and kill stuff. Wolfenstein, I knew there were Nazis, and then at the end, like, Adolf Hitler came clumping at me, all, like, cyborged up. I didn't care. I didn't need all this narrative and story. Is that really as essential these days as people seem to think it is? Like, can you just say, look, bad guys kill? Is that enough? Or do you have to have this deep narrative these days?
I think it can be enough. It depends on the subject. Like Doom, the new Doom could have been done without any story whatsoever, right? I think all agree.
Are we watching a movie or playing a game?
But the new Wolfenstein, right? The story does actually play into it. So I think to this day it's very possible to have. Super Mario Brothers didn't need a story either.
Save the princess. Oh yeah,
they all did have stories. That's the thing. One of the things that we fail to take into consideration when we talk about these things in retrospective is the fact that almost all of these products had manuals of some sort, and in these manuals was the background story for the game. They didn't have a lot of these games didn't have the memory and the program to put it in.
I can argue that didn't actually matter because like when I was a kid where I grew up, I didn't grow up in the States, right? We didn't have manuals or anything. Everything was pirated. 100% of everything was pirated. So unless Doom story happens to be in the README file, but I also didn't read English. I didn't speak English at the time, so I didn't know what the Doom story was. I didn't care.
Completely negating the aspect of saying it didn't have a story is false, because the fact of the matter is it did. Whether it mattered to you or not does not change the fact that it existed.
Well, no, hold on.
I disagree with that.
That's very true. That doesn't really matter. Asteroids didn't have the story. Space Invaders, maybe
yes, they did.
Drawn on the side of the.
It had.
Well, hang on a second, guys. In his defense, even John Carmack said something along those lines, right? Like games need stories, like a porn needs a story.
Yeah, but then he made Doom 3. Again, it's where appropriate. It's possible to do the same today.
It's also times have changed. What
have they?
They definitely have.
What worked in the early 90s might not necessarily work today. Even like the Doom remake realized that.
The demon had a family.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Let me clarify my question. All right. Let me clarify my question. Yeah, the demon's name was Bob, and Bob had a family, and little tiny Tim was at home. God bless us all. So listen. Let me clarify and expand. Every game has a rudimentary story, but in the 90s, like when Wolfenstein was getting passed around as shareware, there was no manual. There was none of that. There were Nazis kill, right? And in most of these stories, most of these games had a one-sentence story. Aliens are coming to Earth. Let me finish. Let me finish the full question. So they had a rudimentary story, right? They had a hieroglyph of a story. Aliens coming to defend. You're on Mars. Demon invasion. Zero Wing, the infamous Zero Wing, was someone blew us up the bomb and all the zigs are launching. Someone set us up the bomb and all the zigs are launching. My point is the amount of narrative that game developers put in now, is all of that necessary? I would argue that if you released Doom today, and it would still be popular. You know, it doesn't have to have all that subtext and this and that and the other. But I think game developers, especially AAA studios that see themselves as delivering, you know, entertainment that's far beyond just a game experience, have gotten themselves in the mindset that it has to have all that.
Socially meaningful, I think is.
Yeah, so that's my point. I'm not saying that it doesn't make it more interesting, but it doesn't really have to have it to be successful.
Well, the answer is probably yes, because Half-Life changed the game. No pun intended. Like ever since that watermark, gaming and FPSs just went in a fundamentally different direction. And you get the occasional Doom, but I just don't see gaming going back to the first-person shooters that were popular in the 90s wholesale. I mean,
you got to consider too how much the death matches and all that stuff is driving Doom.
Right. Well, maybe not so much that game, but multiplayer is increasingly popular. Call of Duty, Overwatch, and it's also depending on what developers want to explore. Like, yeah, John Carmack's statement makes a lot more sense back 20 years ago, but we've also advanced, narratively speaking, in 20, 25 years. We're getting games like Undertale, Life is Strange, Braid, and
Stanley Parable.
Mm-hmm. And these are all exploring. Yeah. The point is, there are all games that are exploring what narrative means in a video game mechanics. So,
well, I'm not saying that you can't use video games to tell an interesting narrative. I'm just saying, are we kind of playing with ourselves a little bit and saying that every first-person shooter has to have a deep narrative to be good? And my answer is no.
No, I definitely agree, and it definitely depends on the franchise. Like, Doom not having a deep story is preferable because, well, look at Doom 3. Like, Doom 3 had a lot of, at the time, modern narrative accoutrements, and it was terrible for it. It was terrible for other reasons, but, it's like nobody was asking...
couldn't see squat.
Yeah, but nobody was asking for audio logs in their Doom.
Well, they're probably thinking ahead too to movies. Is somebody going to be able to make a movie on this based on this game or not?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that there's a good way to do it and there's a bad way to do it. And when I was learning about game design and when I play games, I think that if they're using the narrative to motivate you to keep playing, that's the wrong way to do it.
Oh wait, just say that again. Say that again. I want to hear that again.
You missed the cutscene. You shouldn't be skipping those cutscenes, Shane.
So if they're using the narrative to motivate the gameplay, they're going about it the wrong way, and it should be the opposite.
Okay, because it's still a game at the basic level, right? That's my point. But anyway,
it is, but they're putting the story and the narrative above the game, where the whole focus of playing a game is to play a game. I mean, you're supposed to be enjoying the mechanics enough to keep you playing. Right. You shouldn't have a carrot of some flimsy narrative that's just being thrown in because some focus group is like, well, if there's not a love story in this, then I'm not interested.
That begs the question of how much story in modern games it's padding, because if you go through without paying attention to the story, it might take an hour to get to the end of the corridor, but if there's an audio log you have to listen to every 5 feet, then it takes maybe 5 hours to get through it.
Okay, so like I think I tore this game a new one the last time I talked to Adam. I'm not sure, but I played the latest Uncharted, and that game drove me up the wall. It was so boring by like, the second hour in that I was literally like, I'm gonna just drag myself through the mud in order to see how this thing ends. Because all I cared about was the relationship between Nathan and his like long lost brother. But the gameplay itself was just so boring because it was all to tell the story. It was all there to just get the player from one cutscene to the next, and it had absolutely no substance to it. It was the same shit every 10 minutes, and it's like I got like 8 or 9 hours in, and I was like, okay, I gave this my best shot, but I just can't go any further, and I stopped playing. And of course, like you look at the reviews, and it's like, oh, it's got a perfect 10 out of 10, and it's the perfect game. I would argue that it's the perfect interactive storybook. It's not a very good game.
Oh, and that's what Alan said a while ago. He kind of said it better than I did. He's like, how much of this is padding? And then he made a comment several minutes ago. He said, am I playing a game or am I doing an interactive movie? There's nothing wrong with interactive movies. They can be fine entertainment. But
Right.
is it a game or not, right?
Right. Well, I mean, one of the clear-cut things for me was like, a lot of stuff just didn't make sense gameplay-wise. One thing I thought, 10 years ago it was a sin to add a QuickTime event into your game. Yet Uncharted 4 is like rife with them. It's like every 2 minutes you're like, hit X and watch Nathan lift this door. Couldn't they have come up with a more interesting way to get beyond an obstacle?
It's so immersive, though.
I know.
Yeah, Uncharted is still a bit steeped in late 2000s game design. Now, probably they couldn't break too far away from the formula that they established over 3 games.
So okay, let me give you a good example. A good example of great story and a great game. Beyond Good and Evil, from Ubisoft.
Yes.
2001. That game, you aren't really given any information whatsoever about the world or the characters or anything like that, and you're basically thrust into the shoes of Jade. I don't remember what her last name is, but she's
Jade.
What is it?
Yeah, I don't remember either.
Oh, okay. And basically, she like works at an orphanage on this planet, in the city of Hillies, and there's some political corruption going on just in the background, but we don't learn about this until later. And all of a sudden, her orphanage is attacked by this force. Gotta forget what they're called too. But she's
the
just
Dom.
The Doms, that's right. But so she's just kind of thrust into this story, and as you play along and you go through her everyday rituals, the story and the narrative begin to unfold naturally in a very organic way that makes you want to know more. It builds up the environment. You find out more about the characters and their relationships with one another. It's all done so naturally that by midway through, you have a pretty good idea of what's happening, and you're willing to go out of your way and put yourself in danger in order to, help the people of this city, in like a very selfless way. I don't really know how else to put it. It's one of those games that I revisit every once in a while because I think it's like perfect. It's got to be one of my top threes.
Maybe you can coin a phrase, Stephen. In creative writing, they always talk about show, don't tell.
Mm-hmm.
Stay away from the lengthy exposition. Is there some little pithy saying that we could apply to games along those lines?
All I can think of is don't be Hideo Kojima.
I've got it. Demons are people too.
I'm sorry.
Hideo Kojima. That one doesn't.
Because oh my God, he does not know how to tone down the telling.
I would say the rule of thumb is demons had mothers too.
Yeah,
Hey.
I think show don't tell definitely applies to video games. I mean, it would be really cool if we could come up with our own little thing for the medium. But I mean, it's just as important in movies, right? Like the one thing that I always keep going back to in movies is the perfect example is the opening scene of Star Wars: A New Hope. Basically, in the first 30 seconds, you're told everything you
Everything
need
you
to
need to know.
know
Yep.
just by the visuals.
I've
And,
got it.
But also after a giant text scroll.
Yeah, the giant text.
Okay, good point.
The font was like moving in such a cool way. We're like,
The least cinematic thing you can do is to scroll a text to show a page of a book.
Sure.
If
Okay.
that had gone on for an hour, we would have had a really nice movie. You know?
You are not allowed to confuse the issue with facts, Anatoly. So don't do that. No, I'm just joking with you. So I've got it. I've got the pithy catchphrase: immerse, don't verse. How about that?
Ooh,
Yeah,
I like it.
I don't know. Anyway, hey, I'm about to have to run, but I want to throw a couple things out there. I know that we've got like an hour, or I think Matt was going to cut it an hour anyway, so hopefully this doesn't derail things. I just saw, has anyone seen this? No Man's Sky looks like they're in legal trouble over a formula they're using in the game. Did anybody see this?
I knew they got in trouble because of the Sky name. When did this
No,
come out?
I'm just seeing this today.
Right, this company is just beleaguered with lawsuit stuff.
If anybody, I'll post it in the chat if anybody wants to follow the link, but evidently there's a super formula that it's using for all of the roguelike pre-rendering or whatever, naturalistic shapes with gentle curves, and they may be in some sort of trouble over the formula. But it's so funny, it's like a Dutch company. And they're like, no, they can still release the game. We'll just sit down with them and talk sometime. They're so polite about it. It's really funny. They're like, I don't know. It'll all be okay. We'll just sit down at the table and talk about this. So they're not trying to hold up the game or anything like
Unlike
that.
British telecommunications company Sky, who sued them and told them they had to change certain things, otherwise they'd never let them release the game ever.
Which blows my mind because Sky as a TV service or a media service has nothing to do with Sky as a game. But anyway, that blows my mind. But if you've got enough attack lawyers, you can hassle anybody's day. The other thing is, if anybody, we were talking Star Trek earlier, I'm just seeing coming across the SDCC news wires that the new Star Trek show is going to be called Star Trek Discovery. It's not going to have the Enterprise in it. And they've released the ship design. There's a video on YouTube, and it really doesn't look that great. It kind of looked like a cross between a Star Trek ship and or a Starfleet ship and like a Klingon ship. It looks kind of funky.
That doesn't bode well.
Yeah, if anybody's into Star Trek,
I think you didn't even get the ship right. Forget about it.
Yeah, forget about it.
Is it like the Battlestar?
I heard the name. I haven't
broken down.
Yeah, but I'll put all these links in the chat in case anybody wants to follow.
One of the new guys actually die recently from the movies.
Yeah.
That was really sad. He was a pretty young dude too.
Very young.
Yeah, the new movie. I just saw it last night, and there's actually a toast to absent friends, and he's kind of there in the scene, and I wonder if they did that on purpose because they're like two absent friends, and you can clearly see him when they make that toast. So I don't know if that was.
What did you think? Did you like it? Because I've been hearing good things about it. So
I
liked it as well. I just saw it 3 hours ago.
Did you like it?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
It
gives me impetus to actually go see it. I don't see movies in theaters very often, so.
Compared to the new Ghostbusters movie.
I like the new Ghostbusters movie.
It's nowhere near as bad as all these people were trying to harp it out to be. It's not great, but it's not terrible.
It's a fun movie. It's a fun movie.
It's just a stupid summer action.
Compared to Ghostbusters 2.
I think it's the same as Ghostbusters 2.
No, it's better than Ghostbusters 2.
To me, it wasn't. I have all the same issues with this movie.
Holtzman was such a great. Anyway, but Star Trek in a moment of frantic self-promotion I actually recorded a clickbait video and threw it on YouTube about my review for Star Trek Beyond, and it's spoiler-free.
I thought
So if
that was a
anybody,
Pokemon Go thing that was the clickbait.
well, I've done 2 clickbait videos. You can tell by the thumbnail
You're
because it's
clickbaiting
got my
all over the place.
the thumbnail of the video has me going, so you know it's clickbaity. But there's my Star Trek Beyond spoiler.
How do I close this window? Whoops, it actually went to the video instead.
Yeah. So anyway, but I liked Beyond. I thought it was good. So
It gives me impetus to go see it then, because I've heard lots of good things, but
it's good.
my tastes are rather.
Well,
I'm more cynical than a lot of people are when it comes to movies. So
I actually, on my radio show today, I had a couple of guys on from this thing called Project Small Access, and they're trying to put pressure on CBS to change their fan film guidelines, which are extremely restrictive. And we talked about the movie today, and here's how I put it. I said I liked it. It was good. I said the JJ verse movies, here's how I see them. It's like you're going to go out to eat, and you don't get to go to your favorite restaurant, but you still get to go to a restaurant that's good, and you enjoy the meal. But if you had your druthers, you'd go to your favorite restaurant, which would be in the Prime universe, right? Not the JJ verse.
My life.
Yeah, that's how I look at it. But it's still a fun time out.
Well, I just think it's the third movie, right? Don't expect anything drastically different. You've seen 2. If you've seen 2 before, it's more of the same, really.
And actually, apparently, it's in many ways it's being classified as being better than Into Darkness was.
I think
Yes,
it's.
that's what I thought as well. It's better to me. It was better than the second, not as good as the first. If you thought the first one was good.
Okay.
Can I get a spoiler? Does the Enterprise explode in this one too?
Yes.
Okay, so here's the deal.
Doesn't a whale run into it at some point, or do they find Spock? I forget what.
Yeah, they find Spock, a young regenerated Spock on the planet who's going through Ponfar. No, it's I'm not spoiling anything.
Ponfar.
The trailers.
He was waiting.
The trailers very clearly show that the Enterprise goes boom boom. So I'm not spoiling anything there. It gets literally ripped apart. So, and the trailers basically show that.
I think that was my biggest problem with I haven't seen it yet. I intend to go see it, but I thought the trailers were just so off-putting. Like they just tried to throw too much at you.
And apparently, from what even Simon Pegg says, he co-wrote the story for it. He says the trailers do not represent the movie.
No,
they don't represent what's going on.
The trailers make it look like a hyper adrenaline action movie. Fast and Furious
that first trailer that everybody hated was just like, no sleep till Vulcan or whatever.
Yeah. No sleep till Vulcan.
But the second trailer was just like a reaction to it, which is like it's total opposite. Now everybody's just crying in space with their teammates. It's neither of those things.
Ironically, this movie, despite the trailers making it look like that it's just nothing but ridiculous, over-the-top action,
it's very talky.
It feels more like Star Trek, the original series, the bright, multicolored optimism of Starfleet and all that.
Thematically, very much.
Yeah, it's got more of that than the other 2 movies. But
is it a good date movie when you bring a girl along?
Yeah, I think so. Because Chris Pine's in it.
You have to ask.
Chris Pine's in it, and Captain Kirk rips his shirt. So yes, you could take your date. So
all right, guys, we're kind of running long on time here, so we want to. Anybody have a last thought they want to share?
Well, just to answer Steven's question, and then I'll zip it. Yes, the ship blows up, and that's my one beef with the movie. It's like, stop blowing up the Enterprise, right? It's like, because the Enterprise is a character just like the other characters. Stop blowing up the ship. They've done it in like 3 or 4 movies now. Okay, that's all I got to say.
I got another question for Steven here. Now, Other Side has announced System Shock 3, and now we've got Nightdive Studios doing System Shock. The question is, what can we expect from System Shock, and how do you feel it'll be different from System Shock 3? What do you want to cover in System Shock that they're not going to cover in System Shock 3?
So one of the advantages that we have of us, like let's say us not remaking System Shock 2, is Other Side is in a position where they can they can take whatever happened at the end of Shock 2, and they can kind of run with that if they want, or they can create a new narrative, or they can they can kind of flex their creative muscle, and they can branch out and they can do other things, with Shodan or even the old protagonist. I don't know any of the details, but for us, we're kind of locked into the first game's narrative and the setting and everything that has to go on to get that from System Shock 1 to System Shock 2. And even then, there's a pretty big bridge between the two. And as far as I know, there's only a reference to the first game in the second game with the Remember Citadel written in blood on one of the first levels. And so it's given us a bit of creative freedom as well to do some things that might not have been present in the first game. I'm like trying to answer your question in a good way. I'm trying to think, like, did I answer your question more or less?
Yeah, that makes sense from the story perspective. Maybe in the features perspective as well. Maybe address that.
In the first game, like the
well, the features that users will expect in your remake versus maybe the conversation we had earlier about some game design decisions versus it's going to be your own product versus what other side is doing.
Yeah. So like, again, one of the cool things about this is that because we own the franchise and the license and everything, and because we're able to work with the original creators, we felt very confident that we could give them pretty much free reign on whatever they wanted to do, and not be involved, or be involved as much as we want. But we chose to like pretty much give them carte blanche on what they wanted to do, and not hold them down to any constraints that we might establish in our remake. But we are offering them the opportunity to reuse some of our technology, reuse maybe some of the additional narrative points that we're going to come up with, or that we're going to introduce in audio logs, and even reuse and utilize some of our branding and some of our artwork that we've had Rob Waters do. So it's incredibly open-ended, and giving them that much creative freedom to do System Shock 3, it's one of those things that I think everybody is going to be really grateful for.
Is it shocking? Sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yes, it's shocking.
I'm going to have to mute him. I thought I was bad. All right, Steven, thank you so much, man. It's been really cool.
Yeah. I mean,
I wish you luck. I'm gonna, obviously, everyone watching this, please, if you haven't done it already, Mike, go to the Kickstarter page, pledge. What is it to get a copy of the game?
Hey, I'm down to keep chatting if you guys want to just.
That's fine.
All right.
Well, some of us have to go.
Yeah,
all right.
I'm going to have to roll, but Steven, it was nice talking to you again, and thanks for coming on my show a few weeks ago. I can guarantee you that the podcast version of the show had a lot higher activity than average, so there's definitely a lot of interest in what you're doing. So that's usually how I can gauge interest in a guest, is when I see how active the podcast version is. So
cool. Well,
and you guys watching this, I should mention that both Adam here and Shane have interviewed Steven and other other contacts. So if you want more, there's lots of other. I guess we'll have to find a way to put the links up there.
It's kind of become a running joke in our show. We were actually laughing about it last week when we interviewed Rob Waters.
Well, just because of how many times I've been on your show, or?
Yeah.
I think you're credited as a cast member at this point, right?
Stuff like that happened. It's like, but yeah. For those who want to get another perspective on System Shock, we did interview Rob Waters. He's the original. Trying to remember how to put this. The concept creative artist on System Shock and a bunch of other games, and he's the guy who did the visual design of Shodan. and really all of the monsters in the original System Shock. Now,
didn't he do Bioshock too, or am I just completely?
Yes, he did Bioshock and Bioshock Infinite. He created a lot of the iconic characters, not all of them. Like he didn't create the big, like some of the big daddies. It's a whole thing that's explained in the interview. You know, and don't mind the stage fright. This was Rob's first podcast interview, so he was kind of nervous, but he managed to trudge on through. And
you are very intimidating, Adam. I mean,
but it was nice to get.
Tied.
Yeah. Yeah, he also worked on Freedom Force, which is a game that I'm not.
Freedom Force, one of my favorites.
Yeah, so
that's a game that should have a remake.
Yeah, that's actually a game that he worked on because he wanted to be a superhero comic book artist, but he ended up going into games. And so,
I mean, like a superhero whose super ability was art.
Maybe not that meta, but he really likes superhero stories. And yeah, he also worked on Terra Nova. He did a lot on Thief, and we even talked about the Star Trek Voyager stuff.
Well, his character designs hitting that Silver Age kind of feel for the characters in Freedom Force was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, very Jack Kirby.
Yeah, he mentioned he was going for a Jack Kirby thing on Freedom Force. So, yeah.
All right, gentlemen. So we'll post the links on this. You guys watching this, thanks for watching it. Thanks for your questions, your participation. Again, thank you, Stephen. Go to the Kickstarter page, pledge immediately, at least $100.
I just want to point out that Nathan's doing the Costanza pose. You know the famous George Costanza poster from Seinfeld? Nathan's doing that right now. I want a postcard of that, pal.
Costanza pose?
Yeah, George Costanza from Seinfeld.
I know the character, but I'm reclining on my bed because
yeah, but you know
I've had a long day.
He did like that famous laying out like Burt Reynolds on the rug. It just reminds me of that. Can I get that? Can I get a glossy of that?
It's a look.
You better screenshot it, and then we'll talk.
He hasn't been able to pull it off.
I'm jealous.
Sorry, it's been a long freaking day. I've been up since 6 o'clock for CantCon, so.
All right. Oh, was that this weekend?
Yeah. And then I spent all day yesterday up at Kansas Fest with Rebecca Heineman, hanging out with her and several people up there, which was awesome. So I'm wiped. I'm pooped. But I meant for the fact that my phone wouldn't shut the hell up, I probably wouldn't have joined the chat. I couldn't get it to stop ringing in. I'm just exhausted.
And on that note,
yeah.
Thank you for watching.
All right, guys,
Have a great evening.